Welcome back, as we next demonstrate the procedures for preparing the core ends and sweating the lugs. Begin by placing the lug against the core end. Measure the distance of the ferrule plus an additional 10 millimeters. Using the cable knife, cut a V in the core insulation at this point. Repeat this procedure for the remaining cores. Cut the cores to the measured length using a heavy-duty cutter. Next, remove the core insulation by first making a deep cut into the paper insulation against the end of the grey tubing. As a safety precaution, whenever possible, keep the tip of the knife away from your body. Remove the outer numbered core paper and wrap it around the core to confirm the phase identification of that core. Remove the remaining core papers by tearing them off neatly against the edge of the tubing until the conductors are revealed. Here we see the cores neatly exposed and the phase identification markers in place. In order to protect the tubes during the tinning and sweating operations, apply a length of half-lapped, clean, white linen tape over each grey tube for a distance of approximately 100 millimeters. Gently round the conductors of each core using pliers against the lay of the strands. Do this carefully to avoid damaging the strands of the conductors. Insert a probe into the center of the strands of each core and open them slightly in preparation for tinning the strands, which is the next procedure. Cover the cores with mutton cloth to protect the tubes during the tinning process. The tinning process requires that you heat the aluminium solder to a pouring temperature of between 310 and 315 degrees centigrade. If a thermometer is unavailable, insert a small strip of white writing paper into the solder. If it turns to a light biscuit color, the temperature is correct. Preheat the pouring spoons whilst the metal is being heated to the correct pouring temperature. Failure to do this will cause the metal to splatter when the spoons are immersed in the solder. When the solder is at the correct temperature, heat the conductors by liberally basting with the solder. Apply aluminium flux to the conductors with a short bristle brush. Brush vigorously into the gaps between the strands. Next, tin the conductors by generously basting them with solder. Wipe off excess solder with a piece of clean mutton cloth. Repeat this procedure for the remaining cores. When correctly tinned, the conductors should be bright and shiny, with no dull spots showing. Fit the relevant lugs to each conductor. Tape off the end of each lug with clean cotton tape in order to create a solder dam. Preheat the lug by basting liberally with solder heated to 300 degrees centigrade. Continue pouring solder over the lug and into the pouring hole. To ensure that the lug is completely filled, a solder stick can be used. Apply solder to the gap until it becomes plastic. Then shape the solder into position with a piece of clean mutton cloth, wiping off any excess and removing rough edges. Sweat the remaining lugs using the procedure just described. Remove the tapes forming the solder dam and, using a fine-cut file, remove all the rough edges. Smooth the whole surface of the lug using a strip of emery tape. Do not allow the emery tape to contact the conductors, as this will reduce the cross-sectional area of the conductors. Smooth all remaining conductors in the same manner. Next, using a clean piece of mutton cloth soaked in a suitable solvent such as trichloroethylene, remove any filings and grease from the lugs and cores. Wrap the grey sealant around the void between the lug and the end of the core until it is the same thickness as the core. Repeat the procedure for all cores. Fit the small grey anti-tracking tubes over the taped voids and shrink all the tubes. Degrease the tails with an approved solvent. The cable is now ready for its final connections. This concludes the termination procedure for P.L.S.T.S cables using a typical medium voltage indoor termination kit. By following the procedures demonstrated and the instructions provided by the kit manufacturers, you can be assured of a safe and long-lasting termination. Join us again when you can learn about other types of joints and terminations in this series.